mate.
Big thank you today. We've got Jeremy Manning joining us. He's live from lockdown in Abu Dhabi. Jeremy, New Zealander who's travelled the world with his sport. He's achieved some amazing things through his hard work and his graft. He's going to share with us his experiences today, including the highlight. He helped Fiji win their first ever Olympic gold medal, which ensured he was bestowed the honour of the Honorary Officer of Fiji. I'm going to throw to Jeremy now. Jeremy, thanks for giving up your time today. You want to give us a little rundown of your sporting background and how you ended up with the Olympic champions and how did you help Fiji?
Yeah, mate, it's an absolute pleasure to be on this with you. Thank you very much, Munners. So just a brief background of where I came from and my sporting career as so far. Obviously born and bred in New Zealand, grew up playing rugby as most Kiwis do. And then I had the amazing opportunity to become a semi-professional while still in school at the age of 16. And from there, I progressed into getting offered a contract in Ireland for a team called Munster, which I was very, very blessed on being there at such a great time of Munster's history. Ended up winning the European Cup twice, as well as a couple of, as they used to, I think the local competition, which was between 3 teams in Ireland. Four teams, including Ulster and Belfast. So 4 teams in Ireland, a few teams from Scotland, and a few teams from Wales. So that was a competition we played as well, and very fortunate to win that a few times as well. So I spent 7 years there, and then moved over to the UK to play the Guinness Premiership for a team called Newcastle Falcons. So I spent 3 years there, not as successful as being at Munster, but I really enjoyed my time there and got to play a lot more games than what I expected. So that was, as a young guy growing up, that's all you want to do is just play. And then when I was at Newcastle, I started helping the strength and conditioning side of things with the younger players. It was something that since I was young, I'd always been really, really keen on the strength and conditioning side of things, and not getting too technical about it. So from there, I sort of grew my passion for the strength and conditioning side of things and the fitness aspect of not just rugby, of any types of sports. So obviously, from when I left school, I started doing all my studies, so certificate in sport. And then when I was in Ireland, I continued studying at a couple of universities there, just doing little papers, because obviously with the demand of being a professional sportsman, your time was very limited and your schedule changed all the time. So I loved learning new things about the sporting industry, about how the body works, about how to get the best out of your athletes, how to get the best out of yourself as an individual and as a coach. So the passion for that just kept on growing and growing and growing. So when I left Newcastle in the UK, I ventured out to the Middle East where my wife was, and still is, obviously. So we just thought, okay, I'm kind of sick of being in the cold, rainy, sort of not miserable, but tough conditions. So
not the north of England, Newcastle's not exactly sunny Abu Dhabi, is it?
No, exactly. So I quite enjoy the 12 months of the year, sunshine, and palm trees. So yeah, ventured out here and landed an amazing opportunity to work for a local Emirati family as their head sports guy. And being the head sports guy, it was they would give me a space and they said, okay, Jeremy, we need to fit out a gym here. So I would find the best equipment that they wanted and what their needs were for their equipment. So if they wanted, to be a highly dominant in their cardio aspect, like I wouldn't be putting in, 500 kgs full of weights, blah, blah, blah. So I'd sort of tailor the space for their gym, for their needs. And from there, I was training the family, obviously the males, and then all different types of things. Some of them wanted weight loss. Some of them wanted, to develop muscles in certain parts of their body. Some of them wanted it for sports performance because they were into different types of sports. For example, ice hockey, horse polo. So, I had to sort of switch from the rugby side of things to look in depth how different sports need different types of training. So, for instance, training a rugby player, it's quite high dense contact area. So, you have to prepare the body for these types of impacts. Whereas training a polo player, there's a lot of grip strength and, controlling the horse with one hand while trying to whack a ball with a big mallet on the other end. So there's a lot of rotation work, a lot of core strength, a lot of abductors work. So tailoring the trainings and the programming to this is what I love, and it's an amazing challenge. And when you get things right, like, so many amazing things can happen.
We're going to dive into in detail what do you change for those and how you change the program. How did you, Jeremy? Sorry to interrupt. How did you get to Fiji? How does a guy in Abu Dhabi, New Zealand, who's travelled to play top level? How did you get to become a coach for the Fiji national team, the sevens team?
Yeah, so this was kind of coincidence, being at the right place, right time, and knowing. So obviously Ben Ryan, he was the coach of Fiji. So from the start, when he started his first tournament, obviously the first tournament of sevens calendar is in Dubai. So Abu Dhabi Harlequins, who I was playing with at the time and doing a bit of coaching, had invited Fiji to come a week early and acclimatise and get their prep done in Abu Dhabi before going up to Dubai and playing the tournament. So Abu Dhabi had invited them down, so Fiji came down. So at the start, Ben Ryan was the coach, but he was the manager. He was the strength and conditioning. He was the physio. He was everything. So the thing that you have to understand with Fiji is they've got very limited resources and very limited budget. So Ben, being Ben, he's amazing at networking, at knowing people, and to draw people in to help his team progress with, as I said, like, not much to offer or not much for the team itself. So he got in touch with me and asked me to come in for a week, and myself and Ben, we sat down and I said, okay, what do you want from me? What's the end outcome, and we'll work back from there. So obviously he wanted to win Dubai Sevens. So then we worked back, okay, how are we going to achieve that? Blah, blah, blah. So I sat there, I said, look, I will do whatever you want me to do, and I'm more than happy to help you guys. So for that whole week, I was kind of their strength and conditioning coach, doing their warm-ups, getting their activation, warm downs, recovery, kind of doing everything for them, which was amazing, because Fiji have been the best seven sides in the world since probably sevens was founded. So it was an amazing opportunity, and it was really cool, and so that's how I got into working with Fiji.
So you knew Ben from your playing days. You played against him, or you played with him?
Oh, come on, Munners, I'm not that old, mate. No, so when I was playing, I played quite a bit of sevens in the UK, and Ben used to do a bit of commentary work because he was at that time he was the head coach of the England Sevens. So he'd known me from around the sevens circuit around Europe. Obviously whenever being in Europe, I'd always pass him, say, hi, how are you going? A small chat and that. And then from Fiji coming to Abu Dhabi, our relationship grew, and we became really good friends, and he trusted me in the things that he wanted me to do. So it was quite funny after that first tournament. So during the week, what I'd noticed is these guys are naturally strong, naturally fast, and kind of naturally fit if there is a ball being thrown around. So my job as a strength and conditioning, it was pretty easy that week. But what I did find was their micro skills, like during the game, like their passing, their catching, their eye-hand coordination, just these minor skills they were lacking on. So Ben hadn't said anything to me, so I'd seen some guys doing a bit of extra work, and I could see that they were executing maybe 3 out of 10, which is not great in a professional sport. So I went out there and I said, hey, why don't you just change this, that, just very, very minor things, because, leading up to a tournament a week out from it, you don't really want to change things drastically. So I just tweaked a few things, and it was mainly with the kickers that I was tweaking. And so their percentage going into that week was probably, I think it was like 22% of all kicks they would complete. And cutting long story short, that week their percentage went up to, I think it was like 80, 84, 85%. So for me, I was just like, wow, that's amazing. Like, I didn't care if they won or lost. I was just like, something small like that can have big changes.
You've got the job. The numbers are up, so you've got the job.
Well, that's the funny thing. After the tournament, Ben calls me, and that because they flew to Cape Town literally the day after the tournament, and he calls me and he goes, "Is there any chance you can come to Cape Town?" And I was like, "Oh, look, mate, I'm sorry. Like, I've got my job here, amazing opportunity, but sorry, I have to decline." And he goes, "Okay, no problem, no problem." After the Cape Town tournament, he calls me. He goes, "I've got a contract for you. I want you to work for me in Fiji." So here I was thinking, this is an amazing opportunity, once in a lifetime. And I turned around and said to him, I said, "Sorry, Ben, I have to decline. I cannot. My life is in Abu Dhabi. My job is in Abu Dhabi. Thank you very much, but I'm sorry, I cannot." And I was like tearing my hair out. I was like, "Oh, this is an amazing opportunity. I've lost it, blah, blah, blah." So a couple of weeks later, obviously when they got back to Fiji, he calls me again. He goes, "Okay, I'm going to put the ball back in your court. What can you do?" And I said to him, I was like, "Look, give me a week. I'll talk to my boss and we'll go from there." So we came up with a plan, and I said, "Look, everything's on my terms. I can come to tournaments. I can come to Fiji. I can do X, Y, Z." And then it just snowballed from there. The first year I did 3 tournaments, and then a week in Fiji. The second year that I was with them, I think I did like 8 tournaments, and then I went to Fiji for 2 weeks. And then the year leading up to Rio Olympics, I did, I think, 9 tournaments, and then I did like 2 weeks in Fiji, and then I did the full pre-Rio camp, which was 7 weeks inside Fiji before we left to Rio. So
wow,
it was
amazing story. I think you mentioned a few things there. There's so much stuff I want to chat with you about. You mentioned sort of right place, right time, and knowing you and experiences. I think, moving forward, and we've got some kids in the audience today listening to your stories. I think any opportunity, any experience, take it, and you never know where it's going to evolve, and how you how you conduct yourself could lead to somewhere better, bigger and better, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's like as I said before, like it was kind of right place, right time, and me declining the offer to work with Fiji. For me, it was just like, you want to work with the best of the best. And for me to decline that, like, I had a few sleepless nights. I was like, this is the right thing, is this not? So, from my advice is, you go with your gut instinct. If there is an amazing opportunity to work with some very talented athletes, these guys are raw. We'll probably touch on the things that we were doing strength and conditioning wise with them, and these guys are raw. A lot of these guys have never lifted a weight in their life, but they are so strong. They're so, their lean muscle mass is just ridiculous. Their fat skin folds are just phenomenal, and they, it's just the way that they are. So
we're going to come to that. Interesting. We're going to come to that in a second. But can we fast forward now and just talk us through your Olympic experience? I mean, I love my sport, and every 4 years the Olympic rolls around, and it's just something I think is the ultimate in sport. So just give us a little snapshot, Jeremy, of your Olympic experience. Then we might touch on working back in the plans you did in the training stuff. Tell us about the Olympic experience. It must have been amazing. The ceremony, the village, the event.
Yeah, well, it was quite funny. Like in the Sydney Olympics, I went as a spectator when I was a little kid with my family. So, being there, watching that and seeing all these amazing athletes, and then being a part of an Olympic development, it was quite surreal. And now, talking to you about it, it's kind of brings it home. I just, not that I forget about it, but it's just like, man, did I, was I a part of that? It's kind of pinch yourself moments. So, it was, put it this way, as a coach, if I had the opportunity to be a coach or a player, I'd take player every day. Especially working up to the Olympics, because it's the biggest sporting achievement for any athletes that get the chance to go to the Olympics. So there is a lot of sleepless nights as a coach, making sure that you've done the right thing, that you've prepared the athletes correctly, making sure you've ticked all the boxes that you set out to pre-Olympics camp that you wanted to do. So to be honest, like, not an anti-climax or anything, but it was super hard to enjoy the Olympics because as a coach, like, the players loved it. Obviously, you go to the Olympic Village, you've got this amazing food tent, you've got all these companies giving free stuff, and being around, like Usain Bolt's, like, they're sitting a couple of tables away from the players, and as Fijians, like, they're not around these superstar athletes, so for them, super amazing in that. But for us as a coach, like, we've got meetings, we've got all different types of protocol. So as an enjoyment thing, like, yeah, it was really cool, but I would love to go back as an athlete to really soak it up and not having all this sort of, I wouldn't say mental fog, but just all this these mental jobs that you need to do as a coach. So not taking away that it wasn't enjoyable, but yeah, I would definitely love to do it as an athlete to see the difference of how much you can enjoy. But in saying that, it's Olympics. It's the biggest sporting event of the world. So, you're not going to, not enjoy it. Like, you speak to different athletes, you speak to different coaches, and you get all this little bit of information from different types of people, different countries, how they prepare, how they, just all these little sort of micro, like, bits of information that you thought that you knew, and maybe you could take it into something else. So it was, from an education point of view, it was, like, phenomenal. Like, I learned so much, and, like, just an amazing experience. And I'd love to go back and, soak it up a little bit more.
You need to. You're still a young fit man. You can find a sport, Jeremy. It's not too late. Tokyo's been pushed back a year. It's really interesting. You talk about the difference between a player and a coach. Obviously, a player,
Yep.
you can control your own prep, and you can sort of do what you play your role. As a coach, you've got to worry about all sorts of different roles and everything falling into place. So I guess, was that the reason it sort of create? You've got a job to do as well. You've got to make sure that everyone is on their job, right? So it's a little bit of a different mindset. Yeah.
Yeah, it is for sure. Like, I remember, like, during the Rio camp inside Fiji, like, us coaches, like, as a player, like, you do your training, and that's been all prepared by the coaches. So every morning before breakfast at camp would be coaches management meeting at like say 6 o'clock, before the boys get up at 7 o'clock and do their protocols, etc. So would be doing an hour planning and prep then, and then once the day had finished at 4:30, 5 o'clock, coaches would sit down for another 2 hours to plan prep, injury management, etc., what we have to do. But it doesn't stop there. So once we get back to our berets, so the like, little huts that we were living in, would obviously go through because obviously everything would be videoed, so we'd go through all the trainings, and just to get an idea where the players are at with certain skills, what they're doing wrong, just identification and a bit of onus on the players. So, and that takes 4 to 5 hours. So you'd be looking at maybe 1, 2 o'clock in the morning before you finish, and then you got to be up for a 6 o'clock meeting. So, like, but that's what we wanted to do, because we didn't want to leave anything left out. We wanted to cover everything, and that was our plan. And we all came to an agreement. It's going to be long. It's going to be hard. We're going to get angry at each other. As coaches, we're going to butt heads. But this is what we have to do to win, essentially.
You mentioned a few things there about genetics, and I want to come into that in a minute about environment genetics. But first of all, for me, the sport, the ultimate, you set your target, you set your goal. We're going to win the Olympics. We're going to win the gold medal. For that to come off is truly amazing, and it's not just by fluke or by chance. You guys must have put some serious planning in. What sort of stuff, and you got more involved and it snowballed, but what sort of stuff did you put into, let's just say 9 weeks out, your training camp? What were you really looking to fine-tune with these athletes that are pretty raw, you said, but obviously highly physically skilled? Well,
correct.
Come back in the Olympics, and what sort of stuff impacted your planning?
Yeah, sure. What I'll do is I'll briefly touch on 2 years before Rio. So what we Ben had a plan, and we all agreed to it. So what we did 2 years out from Rio, we fattened the players up. We didn't worry too much about their diets, but what we wanted to do is we wanted to get our sevens players nice, big, bulky. For the long run, is to trim them down. So obviously, making sure that the players are a little bit bulky in that. Obviously, they have to work harder, for their anaerobic and aerobic capacity. So by doing that, when we came closer to the 9 weeks out from departing Fiji, we got them on a very strict diet. We controlled what they ate. We controlled their training. We controlled what they drank. So we shredded them right down. So they were lean, mean running machines by the time we'd left from Rio. So that was like a 2-year process on where we wanted them to be at year 1, where we wanted to be at year 2, and then 9 weeks out from Rio. So obviously in Fiji, they are like, their diet is not the best, and they love sugar. So we completely cut out like all their starchy carbs, and literally we got them on pretty much 0 carbs, and just hit them with a lot of proteins, a lot of like all your greens and everything that the body needs to perform. But by doing that, we increased their anaerobic and aerobic capacity with some strength training. And to be honest, I have never seen these guys in such great condition. Like they were frightening. And the speed that they can run at for as long as they can run at and as hard as they hit, I was just sitting there going, wow, I'm glad I'm not a professional rugby player playing against these guys.
Really interesting. You mentioned you didn't bother about diet until 9 weeks out. Really interesting, sort of that process of fattening them up, in essence, just so they're heavier and they've got to work harder, then they're getting stronger. I've never heard of that before. I know marathon swimmers might fatten up to insulation. Yeah. That's a really interesting thing. When you were measuring, what stuff? How were you getting indications that they're on the right track? What were you measuring along the way with your training? Were you like fitness tests or skin folds? You mentioned that. What sort of stuff were you getting a handle on where they're at?
Yep. So 9 weeks out. So when we're in camp, I would weigh all of the players when they get up in the morning. So what they do is they get up, they do a thing called lotu. So everybody gets together, they pray, they sing, and then they go to breakfast. So before they consume any food, they would come to me, get their weigh-in weights, and then obviously we would map that throughout the days, the weeks, and then when I'd give all of the information to the head strength and conditioning coach, who was a local Fijian guy, he was amazing. So he understood the players, he knew how to talk to them, and he knew how to, chop and change little things in their diet to get them where they wanted, like the ideal weight that we really wanted them at coming into Rio. So, we would weigh them in the morning before breakfast and before they go to bed. And then we'd monitor that throughout the week, and then come to the weekend, we'd have a little bit of a fat camp for a few of the guys that needed to lose a little bit more, fat than others. But we wouldn't bash them guys running or anything like that. Like we'd do a whole lot of different types of workouts and try and keep them off their feet as much as we could for the guys in the fat camp that are doing a little bit more. So that's how we'd track them. We would do skin folds, but these guys, they fluctuate so much. Like we'd send them home for the weekend and they'd come back in just terrible shape. So it was quite up and down. They'd be quite fond of a bit of KFC and fast foods, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. As well, like fitness testing. To be honest, we didn't do a whole lot. We did a couple of. We did. The bleep test, but that was really, really about it, just to have a gauge of where they were. Because a lot of the fitness testing that we were doing, we could see that they weren't putting too much effort in, and there is a reasoning for that. If you decide to, you got to understand with the Fijians, if you tell them to, okay, you've got 100 meters, okay, you're going to put in 100% max effort for your 10 100s, and you've got a limited time rest. Okay, they'll probably do it at 3/4 half pace. The reasoning behind that is if you put a ball and a competition in it, they will go 100% for 24 hours. Like, so there's a way that you can get the most out of them. Like, for instance, if you were to train the Aussies, the Kiwis, the English, whatever, and you said you got, your 10 100s, max effort, and then you've got short time turnaround, they would put in 100% and go for it, because that's the way that they're programmed. But the Islanders, they're programmed a little bit different. You put a ball in there and you say, okay, we're going to play a continuous game of offside touch for 12 hours. You got to go as hard as you can for 12 hours. They would go as hard as they can for 12 hours because there's a ball and there's a competition aspect of it. So we had to train.
Is that what you need to do? Sorry, is that what you needed to do for your conditioning? Just how can I get a ball? How can I make this a game? How can I make it fun?
Yep.
What else did you do? You mentioned offside touch there, which is like a continuous game. It doesn't stop. It's aerobic is very challenging. What else did you do to tweak the program, given you had to make it specific to your boys and so they worked hard? What other sort of stuff being creative?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Like, we had to think outside the box. And Ben Ryan's amazing at that. Like, he comes up with these quirky little drills and, just different types of conditioning, but not letting the players think that it's conditioning. They just think, so everything that we do, we make it a game. So mentally they're not thinking, oh, I'm running 7Ks in this block. But they will be running 7Ks, but they're not thinking, because they're thinking about the competition.
Yeah.
They're thinking, how can I beat, my opposition, stuff like that. So we had to take the mental aspect of conditioning blocks out of their head. So offside touch was a biggie, and then would tweak a little bit on that. Then would make it like full contact offside touch. Then would bring in different types and specific skills inside the sevens game. Would bring that into offside touch, and would just sort of tweak little things. The amazing thing in Fiji, they have some like amazingly massive sand dunes. So we would go up there and they would just get absolutely hammered. And I'm sure everybody that is probably listening to this has run on sand, and you know how hard it is. These guys are running up 200 meter sand dunes, and for hours on end. So we'd just do different things for just to really, really get the lactic threshold up as much as we could. Because obviously in Fiji, our resources were very, very minimal. Like, we didn't even have a gym until 1 week until we left. 1 week before we left to the Olympics. Like, we didn't have a gym.
Wow.
So
you talk about resources. I know you compare it to England or Australia, and they're resourced to the hilt. That have GPS tracking monitors, heart rate, everything. Did Fiji have access to any of that sort of resources, or was it sort of really on your intuition and or whatever you could use? Talk us through the difference of resources that you had access as a strength and conditioning. You talk about no gym. How else were you? Did you find it difficult? What other obstacles were there?
Yeah, so the gym was the massive thing, but so we had been promised that we'll get a gym on site, like a purposely built gym for the Olympics, seven squad for the men and the females, but that didn't come. That wasn't finished until 1 week before we left. So we had to we sat down and we sort of went, well, this is not going to be finished, so we have to think outside the box and how we're going to get the strength training into these guys that that need it. So we just did a lot of body work circuits. But what we'd do is we'd wait till after our running sessions to do these strength sessions, body weight sessions. After that, so they're already pre-fatigued. So to be fair, it actually worked out really well with the individuals and the group themselves. Again, would make it a competition between the little mini micro groups that we had in the strength circuits. But again, like, we used our resources. Like, we found some massive tractor tires. So the boys were carrying those, flipping those, throwing them as you would like sandbags and kettlebells and stuff like that. And then come a couple of weeks into Rio camp, we had an amazing one company. They donated some fitness gear for us. So all of a sudden, the boys have got barbells, have got weights and that. So we just used the rugby field is our gym. So the boys are doing, their back squats, their power cleans, their power lifts, and getting a bit of volume into them that way as well. So, we adapted and we used what we could. And as a recovery process as well, obviously Fiji, palm trees, coconuts. So our recovery drinks were fresh coconuts. Like
Wow.
we used to get, I think a sack of coconuts was like 10 Fijian dollars. So we'd get some of the local Fijian boys that weren't part of the sevens team, just guys come down and watch, would go, right, we'll give you $50, bring us 5 sacks of coconuts every day. And the boys would sit out back, chop off the top, drink the coconuts. That was our recovery drink. And the boys loved it. I loved it. It was amazing. So, you're getting your hydration into it. And then obviously afterwards we'd, supply them with some protein shakes and food for their recovery as well.
You talk about being resourceful. It sounds like you guys were just incredible at that and thinking outside the box. That's really impressive. In terms of, you've mentioned sort of genetics. I've been to Fiji, and I reckon even the porters and the wait staff, everyone looks like they could play play rugby.
Yeah, absolutely.
They genetically look like they're made for the game. Do you want to talk about genetics and their physical makeup or their environment, how you think that works in their favour and certainly helps them?
Yeah, for sure. So with the Fijians, a lot of them are farmers and fishermen. So if you look at, an everyday life of a farmer, like they're doing physical work. They're digging, they're pulling, they're knocking things into the ground. So essentially, they're in a gym environment, a strength environment for 7, 8, 9 hours of the day. So these guys a lot of the sevens players, they're farmers, and a lot of them are fishermen as well. Like fishermen, they're out on the sea, they're swimming, they're diving, they're holding their breath. It's not easy work. Like they are literally like hardworking people. So they, even before camp, like they come in and you just sit there going, like you ask them, have you been training? Have you been doing something? And they're like, no. And you're just like, you're in great shape for not training. So like genetically, these guys are blessed. Like they are absolutely blessed. Yes, there is a few of them that need a little bit of education on what's right, what's wrong, in regarding food and liquid intake. But like once they understand it and why they're doing it, then you can see something switch in their brain going, okay, I've got a choice. I either eat and drink this or I eat and drink this to benefit my training, my recovery, my performance at the end of the day. So yeah, they're genetically blessed, and like they will play, as I said before, like they will play sports from when the sun comes up to the sun goes down. And they will just continually play on the beach, on the road, and on the fields. Like it's phenomenal. Like if you have not been to Fiji and you go there and you drive around, you will be absolutely blown away by the amount of people that are out there playing some sort of sport. And it's hard.
You mentioned yourself, you grew up rugby sevens in particular in Fiji is enormous, and genetic, and then their hard-working culture as well. What did it mean to the and sort of the environment around it? Like, what did it mean to the country? You guys went back and after the Olympics, you won the gold medal, amazing celebration. What did it mean to the people when you brought back these gold medals and they won? What do you think an impact it had on society?
Oh, mate, it's like even like before the guys had won the Olympic gold medal, like anytime they play on TV, the sevens boys, like the whole country shuts down. Like even if it's like just a pool game in Dubai, like everyone will be huddled around a TV and nothing will be happening inside Fiji. Like that's how much these guys are, like they are at the top of the top, like in regards to like getting recognised. Like they'll be above their politicians, above their people that are in the movies, like Fijian people in the movies. Like these guys are like the top of the top. So for them to win, not just win sevens in the Olympics, to win Fiji's very first gold medal ever in the Olympics, like the country shut down for over a week. Like it was phenomenal. Like, so after Rio, I'd actually come back to the UAE. So I was inside the UAE before the boys had got back to Fiji. So Ben and all that, they said, look, you have to come back. And I was kind of humming and hawing. I don't know why I was humming and hawing about going back for the celebration. And then I was like, this could be a once in a lifetime. I'm off. So when I got there, so the boys landed into Suva, and from the airport to this will just show you how crazy these Fijians are about their team. So from the airport to the Grand Pacific Hotel, which is the hotel that we normally use, in the bus, it's normally a 20-minute bus ride. Okay, it took us 3.5 hours to get from the airport to the hotel. 3.5 hours. Like, we were going through, as soon as we landed, like the whole airport was just a sea of people. Like, with their, like, the Fijians are so passionate about sevens, about rugby in general, and they go absolutely bananas, which was amazing for a Kiwi guy, for someone that's not Fijian, to see this passion of these people. It was just, we're going through villages after villages, people in the middle of the road, and we still had a police escort, and we couldn't, honestly, the fastest we went was probably about 20k an hour. Fastest we went in the whole journey. So it took 3.5 hours.
I bet you're glad you went back.
Oh, mate, I've got some amazing footage, which I still look at. It still comes up on my computer, and I just sit there going, this is unbelievable. Like, scary, some of the things that were happening. It was phenomenal. And the people, they deserve it, man. They put their heart and soul into it. Not just the sevens players, but the whole community, the whole Fijian island, the Fijian people. They absolutely adore their sevens team, and it gives them hope. It gives them, the sense of achievement, what you can do with very limited resources and very limited funding. It was amazing to see from an outsider how much enjoyment and passion and just everything that it means to be a Fijian, and for them to support their sevens team. It was mind blowing how much support they have and through their Fijian community.
Which is amazing. I mean, and sport. I think sport. You've travelled with your sport. Sport can unite communities, and I think that's a tremendous example. That's really cool, and inspire the young generation of watching those boys. Correct. I think the impact is phenomenal. I don't think you could measure that.
No, exactly.
You talked about sort of getting recognised on top of the tree. They're like the rock stars. They're the gods in Fiji. Did any of just out of interest, did any of the players post Olympics get picked up with professional contracts? You went over to Munster at a young age. I know a lot of rugby league clubs pick up some players in Australia. Did any of the boys kick on and get some contracts and play professionally after the Olympics?
Yeah, they did. So we had a lot of the guys, as we say, were on-island players, so they didn't have contracts overseas. But what we'd done is we'd brought in a few of the guys that were playing in France, the likes of Leone Nakarawa, Joshua Tuisova. Leone used to play for Racing 92, and Josh used to play for Toulon. So we brought in a couple of those guys that already had contracts. But yeah, from Rio, a few of the guys got picked up. I think maybe five of the 13, or maybe 6 of the 13 got picked up. Some of the guys went to America to play in the major rugby league, MRL there. A few of the guys went to play Division 2 in France. And a couple of other guys sort of got picked up on this sort of seven circuit for the likes of Samurai Sevens and a few other of the invitational seven sides. So there was plenty of opportunity for the guys to pick up professional contracts overseas, which was great to see because they will provide for their family, they will pay for their housing, their electricity bills, their water bills, so for them to pick up contracts overseas is such a financial benefit for them and their family. So it was really, really good to see.
A little question along the lines of talent ID. The boys that made it and those that didn't, what do you think it comes down to? We'll have some kids that are watching this today, and they might have some big sporting goals. What do you think and what you've seen as well from some of your mates maybe growing up? What do you think the difference between, having talent and then making it? And
Yep.
what do you think it comes down to, if you could sort of give a little snapshot of that?
Yeah, for sure. Even myself, like when I was young, like I was never the most talented guy, but I loved working hard on what I was good at and what I wasn't good at. And I think throughout the years of like being a professional rugby player and as a coach and watching people develop, a lot of it goes down to the work that you put in as an individual. A lot of the work that you put in to your sport, doesn't matter what sport it is, but behind closed doors, when people aren't watching, like, are you looking after yourself once you've finished your training for the day? Is your nutrition right afterwards? Are you telling your nutritionist the truth? Are you eating McDonald's versus are you eating what you should be eating? Like it's like it all goes into the big package in the end. So if you are working on your minor skills outside of what your coaches are trying to get you to do, if you're doing those little extras, like you'll be very surprised that will work out for you in the long run. So I was never the most talented guy out of all my friends. Like there was other guys that were just ridiculous at rugby, but they thought that they were already there, so they didn't work on these little things. Which in my head, as an individual that wanted to play at the highest level, like mum and dad, they used to have to bring me down from the rugby field because I was down there still kicking balls till after dark. So and I see that through a lot of the guys that made the Olympics camp. Like it was very cutthroat when we had to cut down the numbers, and it did come down to work ethic. Like we would as coaches, like we would leave the field, and the boys would be doing their recovery protocol and that, but would still be watching the field from where we were, and would see different guys putting in a lot of effort. And these guys essentially made the Olympic team because we seen their work rate and how much they would put into playing the game, how much they would give for the guy next to them. So it's not always about how much talent you have, Manas. It's how much you will put into it, outside of what you should be doing. And a lot of coaches, like these days, they will look at, for instance, young kids coming through, and they will look at the amazing talent, which is great, and you can work on that. But what they will do as well is they'll look at the kids that aren't shining as much, but they can see how much work ethic they've got. And the good thing with that is, as a coach, like you can work so much with that athlete that you can see that's going to work hard. Like you can mold them into how you want your, for instance, like if you're training a weightlifter, like you can mold them into, okay, you're going to be amazing at clean and jerk, you're going to do this. So I can mold that athlete from when they were a young age, because you can identify that they've got the work ethic, that they can adapt, they can change. Whereas some of the guys that are super amazing talented, like they're talented at one or two things, and you try and educate them and try and transform them into something else, and it works, but not. It's a little bit sticky, and it's a little bit harder for them to adapt to other types of things. So, for kids growing up, for your students, for whoever, like you don't always have to be the most talented in the world. Like you can, if you keep working and striving and doing things outside of the work hours of when you're around the coaches, like you will benefit from it in the long term for sure.
I think coaches can see it as well. You talk about that pure hard work. Coaches can see it. I see it at school from boys in year 8, and 2 years later they're different. They're so far advanced. Really interesting point there. You talk about someone that's got the work ethic. You can upskill. You can teach somebody anything if they're ready to work hard.
Absolutely.
I think hard work is the message, and I think you said something there I think was really cool. I really wanted to be a top level player. I think the why is important as well. I think the why will drive your motivation. That's your fuel, right?
Absolutely, yeah, for sure.
I've got loads of questions, but we've rattled through quite a lot. If Jeremy, you mentioned before you juggled professional sport with online learning and stuff. What advice would you give to these students who they're about to do some further study, maybe go off to university, maybe study at A levels and IB and stuff? What advice would you give to students as they're sort of taking that next step, if you like?
Yeah, for sure. Like a lot of people in the industry, they always give an excuse. I'll just talk about a couple of negatives for a start. They'll always say, "Oh, I don't have enough time. I can't do this. I can't get online for this." Like, you got 24 hours in a day. Like, you don't need 12 hours of sleep. Like, you can, if you really want to do something, you will do it. You will find the time to do it. And the thing with strength and conditioning sport, it's a developing concept. So you always can learn more. Like, I'm still what I would class myself as very, very new to the strength and conditioning industry. Like, there is so much to learn, and if you love what you're doing, like, it's easy. Like, it doesn't feel like it's like, yes, it's hard, but you enjoy the challenge of learning all these new aspects of everything. Because, as I said, like, the sporting industry, the strength and conditioning side of things, it develops probably every month. Something new comes out, something else that you need to learn, like about the body, about the systems that your body goes through, stuff like that. So, like, I'd say to them, learn as much as you can. Like, be the sponge, keep upskilling, as you're saying before, upskill yourself. Like, learn different sports. Like, I never knew that I was going to train someone in horse polo. Like, I thought, okay, I'm a rugby person. I'll do rugby. Okay, I've done a golfer. I've done polo players. I've done ice hockey players, and like, I love it because all of a sudden, I know a little bit about rugby and how the body should be, blah blah blah. But all of a sudden, I've got to learn polo, how it works. I've got to learn ice hockey. I've got to learn golf. They're all different types of things. So to upskill yourself on not just one specific sport is amazing. And to learn how your systems, your body systems work in different types of sports, different environments, is amazing. And I still love learning. So I'm, especially over COVID, like, I love getting into books. I love watching, like, people on different YouTube channels. Like, I just enjoy the different side of things and upskilling and learning about all types of different sports and how to get the best out of people.
You mentioned you've done some online courses at universities and stuff. I'll send you a link. Some of these students in the audience now are doing those online courses now, and they're planning to do them over the summer. So you've got a really good point. So I know they're taking on some already on nutrition and training, etc. So I think that's a really good thing.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Constantly upskilling.
Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe I could chat for hours with you. This has been really, really informative. Mate, I appreciate you giving up your time.
You're more than welcome, mate.
Big thank you. Really enjoyed hearing about your involvement with the Fiji team leading up to the Olympics, the training, and the Olympics itself. So, on behalf of the students, Jeremy, a massive thank you.
No problem at all. And I hope some of you people, some of your students and that got a little bit of information about this. And I wish you guys all the best and enjoy your summer. And I'll send Mr. Munners some video footage and some photos that hopefully he can share with you guys about the celebrations, and maybe I'll send a couple of things about the gym and that we were using before we actually got a gym, and you guys will get an understanding of what we had to do about thinking outside the box and developing these athletes with what resources we had.
Mate, that would be great. And what I'll do, I'll share those with the kids so they can watch that before our session. So, mate, really, really good. So thanks once again.
No worries, mate. You're more than welcome.